even without going to thinking of any other thing.
Experts advise the likes of Felix not to carry the pressure of life to bed at night.
No friends. When you walk, you get tired, the body is energy. People need rest. People need rest. Just obey.
For a good night's rest, it is recommended that an individual creates a comfortable sleeping environment by ensuring the best mattress, best pillow, abstain from large meals at late hours, as well as exercise during the day.
Sleep is said to be the third pillar of good health, along with exercise and nutrition. As the connection between sleep and good health is real, this is now an opportunity for you to look at your own sleep habits, search for ways to improve on it, and as well, practice good sleep hygiene.
Very well then, the connection between sleep and good health is real indeed. It is very important for people to take advantage of this call of nature to enable them to lower the risk of some health problems. Thanks, Olukemi. And hope you had an enriching experience on this edition of The Correspondence. Let's do it again, same time next week on another edition. Thank you so much for your time. And there's a reminder that the fight against rape and rapists is still on. Take action and be a star with the NTA. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, Proud African Roots presents a fun time for children and teenagers across Nigeria and the globe.
Everything to yourself. Sports, I just need that.
You learned a thing or two from Growing every Saturday by 9:30 a.m. on NTA Network. It is going to be a fun time with Grandma Wura and all the Blue Table Talk with Dave and Jack. Catch you soon.
It's all in the air and it's all in my heart. The feeling of anticipation. Let the songs and cheering out everywhere in celebration.
Some go they fry chicken, some go they fry meat, some go they cook jollof. Me I go shop potato with decorations everywhere, making it very grand.
And a reason, turn your frown upside down. It's the season and a reason to spread love and joy all around.
And a happy new year, and a happy new year, and a happy new year, and a happy new year.
Turn your town upside down. It's a season and a reason to spread love and joy all around.
And a happy new year, and a happy new year.
President Buhari inaugurates Defense Intelligence Agency housing estate in Abuja. And House of Reps clears the air on ASU allegation on payment of salary arrears. Inspector General of Police recommends suspension of the officer responsible for the shooting and killing of Barrister Omobalanle Rahim. And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll take a critical look at the 2023 Appropriation Bill. 3 days to year 2023, the joint session of the National Assembly passed the 2023 budget expenditure of 21.8 trillion naira presented by President Muhammadu Buhari. The budget, which is said to be the highest ever proposed in Nigeria, is tagged budget of fiscal consolidation and transition. And so with this, the nation's budget once again witness the sustenance of the budget cycle from January to December. Meanwhile, the budget is also expected to facilitate macroeconomic stability, human capital development, and also boost food security, manufacturing performance, and improve defense and internal security. Well, not only that, Claire, the budget also seeks to improve business environment and transport infrastructure, ensure energy sufficiency, and as well promote industrialization, focusing on small and medium-scale enterprises through strategic objectives of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. So let's begin the breakdowns now. And the budget, 17 trillion naira, was allocated to, or is allocated to the health sector, and that is out of the 21.8 trillion naira for the 2023 fiscal year. Now that compares to the 9 billion naira allocated to the sector last year. Well, in 2022, that's this year, of course, it's just few days to the end of 2022. Anyway, so the allocation is set to very set to not to be enough in, of course, meeting the EU commitment. Of course, that's regardless of the increase, it still has not reached the par set by the African Union. Yes. Now, next to the health sector is education, where the president proposed 1.79 trillion naira, representing about 8.8% of the total budget. Although more money was allotted or allocated to the education sector, just as Claire pointed out, as against the previous years, that the allocation is still considered below UNESCO recommendation. So, but in all, it appears that allocations have continued to rise. That's when you evaluate it against the percentage of increase of the total budgets. If you compare with what was proposed last year by this administration. But regardless, observers say it falls short of the 15 to 20% recommended by the United Nations of Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, that's UNESCO. So what are the modalities put in place to ensure effective implementation of our budgets? And then again, we will look at implementation, the gap between budgeting, execution, or implementation. What are the main issues that we need to address? What are the sources of revenue? What are the sources of to fund the budget? And so what will 2023 be like? Will releases much budgetary allocations or provisions. So these are some of the issues again we will be looking at examining on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. So it's on this note I welcome you, our viewer, wherever you're watching from. I know from Nigeria or within Nigeria, outside the country. It's always a pleasure to have you with us on the network service. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak.
Hello, I'm Kieran Umaya. As usual, Good Morning Nigeria is coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. And we also have complimentary segments that will also form today's package. For now, we'll take the news highlights with the Musbao Danwahab. We have not seen him in a while. Boss, it's good to see you again.
So we
talk about the World Cup, what happened? How the underdogs now, have to see that destiny in this.
What we should be talking about now is the Premier League. Am I right, Mr.?
Yeah, Premier League is back. It came back with the Boxing Day fixtures, and we've seen lots of goals with away wins dominating the fixtures, and a result of that. World Cup, like Kieran said, say once more, congratulations to Argentina, and I've been longing for that trophy, particularly Messi, for in all of his career. He finally got that trophy. Congratulations to him. Let's take the news. The armed forces and other security agencies that will be engaged with various support services in the 2023 elections are being tasked to chart a supportive course towards deepening the nation's democratic culture by maintaining a high sense of professionalism and patriotism in discharging their duties. President Muhammad Buhari threw the challenge of inauguration of the Defense Intelligence Agency DIA, newly acquired housing estate at Idukamo, Abuja.
The opportunity to reaffirm my confidence in the competence, commitment, and achievements of the Defense Intelligence Agency's giant strides across the nation. The acquisition of this accommodation is a great leap forward, but the envisaged benefits will be aborted without diligent maintenance.
We want to use this opportunity, Your Excellency, to thank you most sincerely for your astute leadership and direction that has taught us to discharge our responsibilities professionally with the zeal to do more. Your continuous direction and concern over the affairs of the agency have been unprecedented.
The Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Babas recommended the immediate suspension of Assistant Superintendent of Police Drambi Brandy, the officer responsible for the shooting and killing of Barrister Omar Bolanle Rahim, while waiting for the detailed report on the incident. In a statement, the IGP noted that the recommendation for the suspension of the officer is aligned with the internal disciplinary processes of the force and is also expected to create an enabling environment for necessary legal procedures to uphold justice in the case without interference. The suspension is without prejudice to the constitutional presumption of innocence in favor of the officer. Meanwhile, the IGP has reaffirmed the commitment of the force to the rule of law and assured the public of his administration's commitment to ensuring that justice is not just done, but seen to have been manifestly done in the matter. The House of Representatives has cleared the air in relation to a payment of salary arrears owed members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, by the time they were on strike. In a statement, Chairman House Committee on Media and Publicity, Benjamin Kalu, explained that what the House leadership did was to make commitment to improve the welfare package of university lecturers and revitalization funds to improve infrastructure and operations. These commitments, the statement added, are already reflected in the 2023 appropriation bill, which include 170 billion naira for incremental welfare package of lecturers and an additional 300 billion naira for Revitalization Fund, while the Office of the Accountant General is working to facilitate adoption of elements of UTAS in IPPIS. The House spokesperson referred ASU to Section 43, subsection 1A of the Trade Dispute Act on the issue of payment of salaries for the time spent on strike. The Senate has passed the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Bill of 819.5 billion naira, all of which are capital expenditure. The bill seeks to, among other things, provide additional funds to address the effect of a 2022 flood on road and water infrastructure, agriculture, and the completion of some ongoing critical projects that have achieved 85% completion. Senate also passed Finance Bill 2022, which among other issues seeks to enhance tax equity, respond to climate change, and create jobs.
69 billion. Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, 704 billion. Federal Capital Territory, 30 billion. Federal Ministry of Water Resources, 15.5 billion.
Is supplementary is a worthwhile attempt to make sure that projects, especially capital projects, are executed.
The total sum of 819 billion 536 million 937,813 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for Capital Expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of March 2023. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. As I
Away from the National Assembly, the African Union Development Agency, AUDA, says it is mobilizing civil society organizations and youth groups in the country to canvass for violence-free general elections next year. National Coordinator of AUDA NEPAD, Gloria Hakobondo, stated this at a briefing on the activities and outlook of the agency.
That we initiated the innovative strengthening of smallholder farmers, and this program was designed to cushion the effect of COVID-19 as well as addressing hunger in our country. And we thank God that the governors bought this idea and they embrace it and they are all implementing it.
The Nigerian Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs has pledged renewed effort to complement government's efforts at maintaining harmonious coexistence among Nigerians to ensure peaceful and rancor-free 2023 general elections.
Peaceful coexistence in the country, and the need to really come together in unity, understanding to project the good image of this country and the role of the Muslim Ummah, and then quest for peaceful, credible and fair elections that we need to see in this country.
That's just a bit of the news this morning. More will come your way, definitely in the course of the day. For now, we'll take a break, after which the program Good Morning Nigeria will continue with Kyrian and Claire. In just a moment.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just filming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's another for Nigeria. Oh, better. better days are coming. Better days that gives us hope and strength. All I think about vitamin to keep this hope alive. Bringing smiles back to all Nigerians.
It's a new dawn in Nigeria. Renewed hope beckons on our people. The silver lining dots the skies. The firmament portents a bright future as the people of Nigeria move to vote a man whom they have come to trust for the realization of their aspirations for a better Nigeria. That man is Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. He has been tested. He can be trusted. Vote Asiwaju Bola Tinubu as President of Nigeria 2023. Vote Kashim Shettima as Vice President. Vote APC. Surely with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the smiles are returning. We are close to home.
Bringing the smiles back to all Nigerians.
Government of the season, we are quite delighted to thank the following people and institutions for their consistent goodwill and patronage and for supporting the proudly Nigerian dream. His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari, First Lady Dr. Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, ShopRite, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Convenient University, Nes Cash and Carry, Market Square, Prince Ebano, Buka Hospitality, Sahat Stores, Anglican Diocese of Amish and Nnewi, Catholic Diocese of Onitsha, Just Right Stores, and Spire Nigeria. What about you? Are you not aware that when you buy made in Nigerian brands like Erisco, you are supporting the creation of more jobs in Nigeria? We therefore enjoin you to patronize made in Nigerian brands like Erisco Foods and join our numerous partners, distributors, and customers who have built a good relationship with us because they believe in eating healthy food and in economic progress of our country. Thank you and God bless you all.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a Wi-Fi for 5,000 naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband by
Airtel, the smartphone network. Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque. Please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
As we close a successful year 2022 and prepare for the start of a better year 2023, the Nigeria Television Authority, NTA, wishes to appreciate and share the love with all who gave us a year to remember for good. The three arms of government, ministries, departments and agencies, corporate bodies and advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, and political parties. Most importantly, you, our esteemed viewer. We say thank you. Together, we made 2022 great. Let's make 2023 greater. Once again, we say thank you. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year from all of us at the NTA. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Alright, you are still watching Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the NTA. Now time for business news. I will now join Alika Okmanachi for business news.
As part of the continued efforts to tackle malnutrition-related issues in Africa, the African Development Bank, through the African Leaders for Nutrition, convened a high-level discussion on the enormous opportunities in the continent for investment in the food value chain. The leaders called on the United States government and the global community to prioritize nutrition in global frameworks and policies and increase investments in nutrition in Africa. They emphasized the opportunities for collaboration between the United States and African nations to address the continent's nutrition challenges. Now let's take a look at Wednesday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
Right, let's spice up the program now and brace up for what is coming up next.
Now, time for a review of today's national dailies, and we have reviewer Chukwudi Okolie Ubaja here with us this morning. Good morning, Kirian.
It's not complete if you don't add.
She keeps on insisting, rejuvenating me on a daily basis, whereas I feel differently.
How do you feel?
I said I'm creaking in the place I told you yesterday.
Is the Hamatan effect?
Yeah, just leave me alone, okay?
Fix the boy. Age is only in numbers.
Yeah.
Welcome, Chukwudi. Good to always have you with us. Let's begin with the punch. And punching off, it's with the political parties. PDP threatens sanctions at G5 governors meeting in the UK, and it's on page 2. It comes with 3 riders. APC presidential candidate intensifies lobby. Obi banks on Obasanjo's backing. It's too late in the day to go back to Atiku. Reconciliation failed, says a source. And governors on vacation, they risk being disciplined for anti-party activities. And that's been attributed to the PDP. And just as you can see, the earpiece beside the nameplate indicates, and it was also announced yesterday by the Imo State Governor, Uzodinma Merns, as Ohaneze leader died. That's Ambassador George Ubiozo. The announcement was made on the network service yesterday. May he so rest in peace. And just moving on to the other stories atop the nameplate, defense, health, get lion's share as National Assembly passes 21.8 trillion naira budget for 2023. Now, Senate rejects Buhari's request to restructure 22 trillion naira CBN loan. You can get all the details on page 20, and of course, just a reminder, that's our focus today. Our main focus on Good Morning Nigeria. NLC gives Buhari conditions for new minimum wage. It's on page 19. It will be good to hear or see or listen to the new conditions. I raised this yesterday while we were doing the newspaper review, and I'm wondering what Kingsley and Kieran will say about that. But let me also intimate you with stories trending at the foot or at the bottom of the paper. Deserter trained 1,000 IPOP fighters killed Gulag. Police, details on page 5, and reps demand justice for lawyer slain by policeman. It's also on pages 4 and 5. And 4 arrested for lynching Adamawa woman over witchcraft allegations. It's also on page 4. Now that's the outlook of the Punch today.
All right, we turn to Al Jazeera newspaper, from top to bottom. Omobolale reps seek ban of alcohol consumption by police. Details of that page 9. Now, the lead story on Al Jazeera has to do with the budget. 2023 budget, that's the kicker. National Assembly passes 21.83 trillion naira with 4 riders, extends 2022 budget by 90 days, approves 819.5 billion naira supplementary budget. As Senate proposes 376 new agencies, Sean's Orosan report to resume plenary January 17. It's on page 9. Now, the other story is a fatal crash. Omahi orders arrest of APC chairman, rep candidate, that's in Ebonyi State. It's on page 7. Ohaneze President General Obiozo dies at 80. Ekiti Election Tribunal delivers judgment today. That's on page 2. Again, herdsmen invade Ondo, attack resident. It's on page 5. New Naira, 2 weeks on ATMs still dispense old notes. That's 2 weeks on ATMs still dispense old notes. It's on page 16. Bagudu seeks NGF synergy to improve well-being of PLWDs. I think NGF is the Nigerian Governors Forum, while PLWDs means people living with disabilities. Details of that story on page 2. Police record 0 crime in Niger during Christmas, says CP. It's also on page 4 of Al Jazeera. Let's move in Chukwudi now. What is trending for you this morning?
The big news is the passage of the 2023 budget, and of course, remember the 819.5 billion naira supplementary budget, which was also tabled before the lawmakers to make up for the devastating effect of the floods. They had to do a supplementary budget. That is very important because that one has direct links, to food security. Food security. If you're not well fed, I don't know what plans you're going to make. So it is not just the 2023 budget of 21.83 trillion naira we're talking about now. The supplementary budget also went along with it. Interestingly, one would have thought that the Steve Orosan report on rationalization and restructuring of government parastatals, agencies and commissions, would come into play. I said interestingly because about 376 or so new agencies are actually being proposed, by the Senate in its own contribution, Now, the estimates for 2023 show an increase of 1.32 trillion naira compared to what President Muhammadu Buhari, tabled before them. It was actually 20.51 trillion naira budget estimates he sent to the National Assembly. They, in their wisdom, have added 1.32 trillion naira. Now, something we need to recognize as well here is the extension by 90 days the implementation of the 2022 budget. The reason being advanced for that is that we don't want the incidence of abandoned projects to happen to us at all. And I think that is a fair action, because to start something you don't finish, it's not salutary. It's a conscious effort to be development conscious unit, entity or nation. So I think that should be taken note of. Defense and health are getting the lion's share in this budget. Defense, we would all know why. There is still the battle against insurgency, banditry, and all the things that are plaguing this country, in terms of security of life in Nigeria. So,
I think that's the central point of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria.
Oh, okay, so fine.
We have,
we're going to have expert assessment of that. Yeah, health, of course, is very important because I like it when they tell me that when you call an ambulance in the UK or the US, within 5 minutes it's at your doorstep. And maybe health is beginning to receive that kind of attention where we will one day be very proud people in terms of how much or how easy it would be for us to access health facilities. So that's it. Let's leave the budget for experts to dwell on, except if you're asking, you think there's anything we can...
Yes, we could look at it. Yes, I did mention earlier on the front page of the Punch, we have NLC reacting to the issue, one of the dailies yesterday about the government contemplating increase in the new minimum wage, including salaries.
Yes.
And on the inside page, I like to read, it's quite interesting what the conditions that NLC has listed, Kiran, and, permits me to read out, a particular, yes, it said, determining the new wage, Ajero, who is one of the leaders of the union, yes, will be based on different indices such as the cost of living, inflation rate, devaluation rate, and others. He stated, it's not going to be a straight jacket issue. If the federal government says there will be a review in the new year, and that review would involve a tripartite session, that is labor, government, and employers. And since they equally said it will be determined by the increasing cost of living, then some factors will be considered, which is, he notes, cost of living, living index, inflation, devaluation rate, and others. He says, take for instance, a loaf of bread is now 1,000 naira. So in 30 days, it should be 30,000 naira. So all of this will be brought to the table. And if you look at transportation, kerosene, diesel, petrol, cooking gas, and other expenditures, these are more than 30,000 naira minimum wage.
So there will be no need to even go into details, in terms of loaf of bread, the cost, and all of that. Because it's a two-edged sword. You increase salary, of course, inflation comes in. So it has to be done with some level of the sensibility. So you don't just get into it because you want to push salary up, push it up. Of course, you can carry a basket of money and buy a polythene bag of commodities. So that will be very, very unhealthy.
So what the deputy NLC president is saying is that it's not the quantum of money that is in your pocket that matters in the circumstance. Other factors are to be considered.
Yes.
And we listed them there. And I think they too are beginning to do their own, you could call it elementary economics, but it does make sense what he's talking about. Many factors have to be considered. They could pack money to you, which at the end of the day is actually ineffectual in terms of
we are talking about 30,000 naira minimum wage. So if you push it up to like 50,000 naira minimum wage and whatever, that's where the inflation thing comes in, because government has to also be watchful of what is going to be the resultant effect of any increase in salary. But if you consider if you factor in everything a human being should be able to get under normal circumstances, then of course, nobody in Nigeria should be paid anything less than 100,000 naira as minimum.
I like the rudimentary economics we looking out. It's interesting. Our O-level economics tells us that when few goods are being chased by too much money, we're going to have inflation. Even though the National Bureau of Statistics is actually telling us that part of the reason we have inflation, and I think I noticed something there, is the cost of importation due to the depreciation of the naira. That has taken a lot of the toll on the inflationary trend. I am happy that you're going to have an expert come in here and really look at it at a level where the common man would understand it.
Yes, because
economics is always a little.
Exactly, because when you go about increasing salary, it connotes a lot of things, and if you don't factor them in properly, then you're going to have some difficulty. I don't know where you can still remember, like just a popular salary increase. Then Adebo, no. Before Adebo, George.
All right, please, gentlemen, we have to move forward. There's also a story. There's also the passing of the President General, Johannes Ndibu. Yes, Professor Ubiozo. That's a big loss. Definitely.
Remember, this man has been an astute diplomat. He was there for us in Israel. I think it's Israel and the UK. Israel, I'm sure.
Yes, and the UK.
And of course, he paraded clean credentials in terms of service to the nation.
He was an achiever. He was an achiever. An astute personality. In fact, the people from the southeast of Nigeria, and indeed Nigeria, we just lost a rare gem. What it means in the diplomatic spheres.
All right. So I don't know, Kira, you don't have. I have one more, two other stories, and I'm happy at the response, Chukwudi. Nigeria and Nigerians are given to
the brandy.
Yes, our mobile language. Precisely. The IGP yesterday, it was on our news, had called for the suspension of the policeman, pending when full investigation report on him.
The president reacted yesterday.
The president also reacted. Yes, and again, we had a discussion here on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday, and we were told that the policeman in question, not only was an experienced policeman, a senior officer, but also had no previous bad record.
And sorry, we also had that he was assigned a pistol, and they didn't know how he came about AK-47. These are just the stories coming here and there. But what I want to point out here is that they say reps seek ban on alcohol consumption by police. Why should the policeman consume alcohol while on duty? I mean, that shouldn't even come in the first place. But if that was the case, it's too bad. But at this point, we're going to round off.
Just before we round off, just a side, please continue to use your face masks. Right now in China, I'm sure you must have heard the increasing number of COVID-19 cases. Some countries have gone ahead to again start the routine checks on some nationals entering their country. Coming into the country, exactly.
I'm a deeper from this. Not quite long ago, the government of Nigeria had just said we should go back to normalcy. As a matter of fact, let us not bow to this thing called COVID-19. We can work it out. Nigerians are surviving. We're going to survive. You're right. So China is a different kettle of fish.
They're not saying that.
Let us round off this conversation on Inspire. We do that again tomorrow. When we return on this platform again.
I think it's here. So
but I would like to
otherwise COVID-19 is susceptible to
happening now or coming today as always. We'll see you again tomorrow, Chukwudi.
Okay.
Thank you for your analysis. Thank you. All right, so you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we will, of course, delve into today's main issue. Stay with us.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just filming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
The 2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration is here again. The Nigerian Armed Forces work tirelessly day and night to give us peace to go about our businesses. Some have paid the supreme price. Should we forget the families and loved ones they left behind? No!
And therefore privileged to honor these veterans who devoted most of their lives, active lives, to securing the nation and the world at large.
So, let's support the Nigerian Armed Forces and their families, corporate organizations, government agencies, parastatals, and individuals. Let's show our love and support for our armed forces. They are our heroes. Buy the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem and donate into the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem Bill account. We love you, and your labor and sacrifice will not be in vain for spilling your blood for us to live.
Critical military objectives of total defeats of the terrorists in the northeast is already been achieved. Synchronized group and air operations have continued to inflict huge casualties on the terrorists, and have been forcing many of them, including their commanders and emirs, to surrender in droves with members of their families. Whilst areas where terrorists hitherto had some freedom of actions are being cleared, and socio-economic life is gradually returning to the most parts of the northeast. As well, internal displaced persons are now returning to their ancestral homes to start life all over in dignity under a safe and more secure environment.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria. It's been an interesting, heated conversation. Of course, Kieran has his own perspectives to the issue of viral spread. That's notwithstanding, let's of course intimate you once again that our conversation this morning is based on the 2023 appropriation bill recently passed by the National Assembly. So to put us on the pedestal, let's listen to Ignatius Mpo's report.
7th of October 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari continued with his timely submission of budget as he laid the last budget of his administration before the joint session of the National Assembly. 2 months after a rigorous journey, the National Assembly has passed the money bill with an increment of 1.3 trillion, arising from additional items introduced after the submission of the budget.
These new funding include Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Health, National Population Commission, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Army, National Institute for Security Studies, Nigerian Police Force, Ministry of Aviation, and new National Steel Council, among others.
We have also passed the supplementary budget for 2022. We expect total implementation, no selective implementation. It should be total because this has been what this administration has always tried to do.
The 2023 budget targeted at achieving higher inclusive and sustained growth, maintain fiscal viability, and ensure smooth transition to the incoming administration is based on oil price of $75 to a barrel, daily production of 1.69 million barrels per day. In the budget tagged Budget of Fiscal Consolidation and Transition, 967.4 billion is for statutory transfer, 8.3 trillion for non-debt recurrent costs. Capital allocation is 5.9 trillion, while debt servicing is 6.5 trillion. The budget was also passed by the House of Representatives. As usual, Ministry of Works and Housing has the highest capital allocation of 398.2 billion, Agriculture and Rural Development 248.3 billion, Defense 285 billion, Education 153.7 billion, Water Resources 83.2 billion, Health 134.9 billion, Ministry of Transport 74.2 billion, Power 56.1 billion, Ministry of Justice 34.1 billion, while Information and Culture has 11.8 billion.
To authorize the issue for the Conservative Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 21,827 billion. We also appreciate the cooperation of and understanding of our appropriations subcommittees and our colleagues who submitted and defended their reports after weeks of rigorous budget engagement activities.
The legislators have amended the period for the implementation of the capital component of the 2022 budget from December 31st, 2022 to 31st of March 2023. The Ninth Assembly has sustained the passage of Nigeria's annual budget before the end of the year for the fourth time. Will the incoming Assembly keep to this feat? Answers to this will be known in the next 12 months. Senate has adjourned plenary to 17th of January 2023.
Yes, that's the background for today's conversation. And our guest here in the studio is an economic policy analyst, Professor Ken Ife. Of course, he's a face to identify with on Good Morning Nigeria. Professor Ife, you're welcome to the program. We're also trying to establish a Zoom connection from Khartoum, Sudan, where we also hope to have our guest, Director, CEO, Timeline Consult, Shuaibu Idris. We're trying to establish the connection from Khartoum for him to be part of the conversation. Claire.
Yes, indeed, Kieran, thank you. Have you also introduced Senator Abu Sabi, the Senate Deputy Chief Whip? We are also expecting him right here in the studio. Hopefully, he will join us in the course of our conversation. But let's begin with appraisals. Professor Kenife, by the way, compliment of this evening to you. Yes, let's begin with appraisals, even before we begin to delve into the 2023. During the budget, proposal presentation by the president, he did say that, if I, put him correctly, by the second quarter of this year, half of the, 2022 budget had been spent. How would you evaluate so far, the implementation of the 2022 budget? So we still have a couple of months, to end it.
So what happens is the spending priority is usually President says to Minister of Finance, make sure you pay salaries, make sure you pay pension, make sure you provide for loan repayment. So that's why we're having the forecast. These are matching orders. And then you come to defense, matching orders. So priority goes on recurrent expenditure. So at any one time, we're 100% recurrent expenditure up to December. What then have the pushback is always on pushback. So that's why you tend to have 90 extra days to match, to catch up with this capital expenditure. And I think even last year it was extended to June. So we know that this year will be too much. We'll see how it happens. Of course, there's a supplementary budget coming to play. So I think it's we will see more. The budget performance will be 100% on recurrent, and then
wherever it
Wherever.
is capital, we will take it.
But so far, how would you again appraise the expenditure, capex, 2022 and 2022, vis-a-vis infrastructure, blocking infrastructural gaps?
No, I think we would even glean from the supplementary appropriation that there was a lot to go. The lion's share of about 704 billion went to housing, works and housing. And you could see it, some of the major milestones like Onitsha Bridge,
Second Niger Bridge.
Then people had to give a sigh of relief. They enjoyed their Christmas. They didn't have to spend a day on the queue. So you could see some of that. And even when you look into the new budget itself, you will see that over 1.1 trillion just went to works and housing. That is the lion's share. But of course, you also know that we suffered flood. And that made agriculture have to come in with 69 billion going to agriculture in the supplementary budget. And then when you add it to what they got in the new budget, they are also ranking number 2. Obviously now defense will begin to follow and all of that. So the capital expenditure, we ran about, we didn't have enough money, so we had to go looking for more money. That's part of that story.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Is there any paradigm shift in the way we have, in our budgeting and processes and in implementation of, projects? Have you seen any initiative that depicts, the deviation from the norm?
I wouldn't say.
Apart from the January to December to cycle.
Projects. The one that excites me is the revenue mobilization, because the Ministry of Finance went all out on their strategic revenue mobilization initiative.
Okay.
And they know that's the weakest point in our economy.
Precisely.
To see they can push it from 7% of GDP to 15% of GDP. And what excites, there are 4 things that happened yesterday. One is the shifting of delay passage of the loan, that huge loan, $53 billion that we need to swap to bonds and over 40 years.
Okay.
But the delay passage of it, that's number 1. Number 2 is supplementary act, the supplementary budget, which, as you know, was 819 billion naira. Then the third one is the Finance Act. And then, of course, the main budget. Those are the 4 major things that happened yesterday. The one that excites me the most is the Finance Act. Because the Finance Act was there to support all the major tax approaches in the current budget. And they excited me because you can see that these guys are looking for money. And they're getting it from anywhere. Like gaming, casino, even the national law, they are out for them. They want tax from them.
Precisely.
Then those who are doing all this gas flaring, they've hit them, from 30% to 50%. And then even the intellectual property and all of that, they are out for them. They say, look, whatever digital assets that you have, we want to get cut tax from you. So that means you're going to be revaluing them as so that they'll be collecting tax and capital gains. But of course, they also soften by saying if you have losses, the losses on the particular subsector of your capital gain, they can set off. You have a set off. Not everything you have. No. They targeted that. And so they're not interested in VAT. They went for licensing MTN and Airtel to collect VAT electronically, and then going for oil and gas company to help collect as source. That is aggression, and I like it. But we're now seeing government use everybody and everywhere.
Yeah, spreading dragnet, for tax collection is quite appreciable. But we're meeting same to government coffers is also another. That's another issue we'll take on as we make progress in this conversation. But let's talk about 2023 appropriation bill that has been passed by the National Assembly. Over 21 trillion naira passed. Historically speaking, in the past 30 years, Nigeria, I'm not sure, has not been able to experience a balanced budget. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But for myself and the ordinary Nigerians, we don't understand why the nation should not have been able to have a balanced budget for decades. What are the issues? Now, the budget of 2023 has just been passed yesterday, and that there are several allocations, sectoral allocations, and what have you. So, do also an appraisal of the 2023 budget which has been passed. Of course, you have a clear understanding of the budgeting process and what the executive came up with before it was transmitted to the National Assembly. So what's your assessment of the entire package? Of course, there is over 1.something trillion added, but not 1.3 trillion.
I think first of all, you have to look at the fiscal strategy paper and the framework, the benchmarks. Now, they went for $70 per barrel. But during the review, they are saying they push it up to $75 per barrel. And that immediately populated the figure by extra 1.2 or 1.3 trillion. So the first question is, where is that 1.3 trillion? Where is it? What was it spent on? And then immediately you see that the national population census is coming in, they're getting money, INEC is getting extra money, and then you now started to look at all the other defense and health and all of that. That's how they spent that money. It wasn't like that they brought it and put it on constituency budget. No, that's not. That's where they spend the money. The second thing is that what other benchmarks were tampered with? We have the benchmark on Forex is $4.35 a naira to a dollar. But I've seen projections from some institutions that it may go up by about 10% by the end of the year. That is, that 435 may head up to about 480. So that is projection. But it's not, that is from some institutions. But that is not unlikely. But it, because we are not comparing the two parallel rates. Then the other one is inflation projection is at 17.16%. But currently the inflation is 21.6. So I don't know how we can bring it down to 17 by the end of the year. I'm not sure. By the end of 2023, I'm not sure we'll be able to achieve that. But it is a projection.
But you see, it's a projection that we need probably to further scrutinize, and that's why you are here, Prof, as an economic development economist. What economic sense does it make?
Okay, let me finish. Give you
all the parameters.
I'm just disaggregate them.
Please go ahead.
The production volume is at 1.69 million barrels per day. Which is realistic, but it's not that we are not going anywhere near that because of all the things going on. So we just 1.3, yes. But if we are determined, we can hit that goal. After there were times when we did 2.2% million barrels per day. Then you have the GDP growth rate that they put at 3.75%. Now that is doable. That's doable by the end. But when you do the December one, you will now see what the summary, that is the average of all the quarters, will come to. So this 3.75 is supposed to be the average of the whole of 2023. So we will see an improvement because December is when you get the biggest spend in the quarter. Okay. So we will come out strong.
Okay, so can you, just before we bring in our guests, can you do a review again of these benchmarks, because we're going to take them one by one and against.
Okay.
Yes.
One is the oil price benchmark, which government initially had at $70, but it was raised to $75 by the assembly. And immediately you raise that based on a production volume of 1.69, then immediately there was a surplus of 1.3 trillion. And they had to go and domicile that surplus in national planning and all the INEC and all the other ones. Then you have the production volume, of course, was 1.6. I'll talk about that. Then the GDP growth rate is 3.7%, which they will say 3.75. Will say that's doable. But the one I'm not quite sure about is inflation, that is at 17.16%. I'm not sure about that because currently it's over 21%. So
let's pursue and bring in another guest via Zoom. all the way from Khartoum, Sudan. The managing director, CEO, Timeline Consult, Shuaibu Idris. Thank you, Shuaibu, for taking time to be with us on the program all the way from Khartoum, Sudan. I don't know what the time belt is there, but let's say good morning from Nigeria.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning, Professor Ken. Good morning, Madam Claire, and good morning, Nigerians. And let me seize the opportunity to wish all of us a happy new year in advance. Sudan is still very early in the morning. We're just 1 hour ahead of Nigeria from here.
Okay. And of course, you're knowledgeable, when it comes to the issue of budget and the budgeting process. And of course, we have a budget that has been passed yesterday. Oil benchmark put at $75 per barrel, with daily production of about 1.69 barrels per day. Exchange rate projected at 4.35 naira to a dollar. Debt servicing put at almost 6 trillion naira, and of course, recurrent expenditure at 8.32 trillion naira. What do you make of this?
Well, Kirian, to say the least, my humble self and my elder brother, Professor Ken Ipe, and 2 other guests did dissect this budget when it was initially presented to the National Assembly. And our position was very, very clear then. The budget did not appear to have come from people who are living in Nigeria and who probably will know what Nigerians are facing. The world economy, indeed everywhere, every part of the globe, there is a thought process that next year recession is likely going to set into the world economy. Now we are in Nigeria here, we are, targeting a 3.75 GDP growth. Where and how will that be possible? Your guess is as good as mine. If indeed we take the budget process serious, honestly, yes, we all commended the National Assembly and indeed President Buhari for making sure that we have a January to December period. But when you look at, or you juxtapose what has taken place in the last 2-3 weeks in Nigeria, i.e., the Ways and Means account, where the domicile in the central bank, where we have had a debit balance of 23 trillion naira, and Mr. President has just sent that piece of legislation to the National Assembly to appropriate that the 23 trillion naira and to sanction it as part of our national debt. What I would have expected is to see a National Assembly that would have, somewhat slowed down, the processing of the passage of this budget, so that we can situate the new figure, the new debt figure, and add it to our existing quantum of debt, so that we can possibly be a little realistic. And also the National Assembly to take a drastic measure such that the use of Ways and Means account that we had stopped during the administration of Obasanjo when he's coming to power as a civilian should be a thing of the past, and there should be a legislation that will stop that, and anybody who is doing or using that account should be criminalized. Let me take on the assumptions. Number one, $75 per barrel is not too high. But the rationale behind using $70 per barrel was to look at the future of Nigeria and to have some level of savings, such that the sovereign wealth fund and the excess crude account may have some credit. Now the National Assembly, despite our discourse that there is supposed to be a little bit of belt tightening, we decided to increase the benchmark from $70 per barrel to $75 per barrel. To my mind, is a bit, excuse my choice of words, a bit reckless. If you look at the benchmark as regards the crude oil production per day, 1.69 or thereabout budget. We are doing slightly 1.05, 1.1. The highest we've done in the last 6 months was 1.2 million barrels per day. Now, when again you juxtapose what we are able to achieve and the budget benchmark, and you take out what we may not be able to achieve, herein lies where additional borrowing may have to come into bear so that we can cover the possible gaps, and we will then have an exacerbated level of a budget deficit. Again, when you look at inflation, yes, okay, today inflation is somewhere around 21-22% as per the National Bureau of Statistics. But you and I and all of us in this forum will agree with me that the actual level of inflation is in the region of 30-35%, and in quite a number of instances the inflation is close to about 40%. Why will anybody be budgeting a little over 17%? I do know that if Central Bank wishes to be serious, if Central Bank of Nigeria and the managers of our economy will want to be serious, they could belt tighten, they could reduce liquidity in the system. They could come up with quite a number of radical economic policies that will make sure that the inflation is reduced. We can decompose our inflation. What are the causes of the Nigerian inflation? Number one is issue of oil prices that have increased. Diesel price from somewhere around 200 naira now is about 800 naira or 750 naira. What can we do regarding the diesel price? Historically we have had challenges of transporting goods from the ports. Just getting into Apapa or Tinkan Island ports in Lagos was a problem. Transporter will have to pay close to about 250,000 naira just to get into the ports to pick our goods to the hinterland and to the eastern and southern parts of the country. Those expenses were to be added to the cost of the goods being sold. If we could address some of those areas, and in addition to the excess liquidity occasioned by various interventions of the central bank and the ballooning of the central bank balance sheet, inflation will be curtailed and we will be able to possibly reduce it. Carrion and fellow discussants, let's also address the sectoral allocation. Can we really be said to be serious? A country with 220 million population budgeting about 134 billion for health, 249 billion in agriculture. Education is just somewhere around 300-400 billion. I hope and pray that our teachers, our lecturers in the university have had their salary being allocated in that budget.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you. Let's put you on hold and deal with the issues that you raised concerning the fiscal assumptions and the parameters. Because Professor Kenife also raised some issues with some of them. We'll turn to the studio now. He has used the word, maybe reckless, or even to assume that those who, prepared the budget probably did so, with the mindset of, foreign country and all that. But let us look specifically at the exchange rate benchmark. Now, a lot of people, economic analysts, have said, look, the way our exchange, the power of the naira now to the dollar, probably it's not, it won't do us any good. That there is need for a convergence, and until we attain that convergence, we'll still be having issues with, our budget projections.
That's not on how would I describe that? I wouldn't fault that. It's most desirable to have convergence, currency convergence, the forest convergence. There's no doubt that we need that. But you have to look at the reality. Our expectation is one thing, but you have to look at the reality on the ground. Nobody wants to run away with the kind of inflation that we have. Now, if you look at, these are prices. Inflation is price. Forex is price. And all of that, in all of these pricing things, demand and supply comes in. So, and then you try to resolve those to get a steady, and then you look at elasticities, you look at all kinds of things. But the fundamental thing is that you have to look at the demand and supply. For you to, talking about the exchange rate, where is your forex coming from? Where's your dollar coming from? It's coming from your export. And what are you exporting? 79% of that money is coming from crude oil. 10% is coming from gas. It's only 10% that is coming from every other thing. Diaspora remittance, foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, and little investment. That's the one you have a little control over in terms of, what can you do? That 79% is very important, because what it means is that NNPC ought to have been sending $3 billion every month from proceeds of that crude. And when that hits the CBN, then they will still take some of them to pay for the imported PMS. Now, if it enters since 2014, now CBN disburses $1.8 billion every month. At least there would have been some headroom. But what is the request for Forex? $4.6 billion. CBN normally on a normal day would have disbursed 1.8 a month, and NNPC would have brought 3 billion. Then you would have begun to say, okay, we are able to settle this, that, so let's try and convert the currency. You don't have that leverage, because NNPC does a crude swap with foreign refiners, pushes all that crude away, doesn't send that money. I think it's only more money to be sending 300, 10% of it. And then what is coming back is PMS. And upon that, they've moved all that money away to the foreign refiner. Even the PMS coming in is still telling government to go and find 500 billion every month as subsidy. So you haven't got that money you would have used to pay for the import. You haven't got that, so it's not there. And people are still just flooding central bank as if it's printing dollars somewhere. We have to see where is it? That's the big thing, and that has a knock-on effect on inflation, because that $4.6 billion requested for import, they can't get it from central bank because he hasn't got it. The one that central bank normally would have disbursed 1.8, he hasn't got it. So, and don't forget that part of it is to pay for debt that he incurred in dollars. So what then happens is that demand for forex will go to the black market to look for the money, dollar, and then you get to see that. You see this. They at whatever price they get it, which is twice what would have been the price on the official market. They will import whatever they import. They have to pass it through consumers. Imported inflation, and the consumers are helpless. And there's no price regulation, and you don't have to have price regulation. But that is the reality. The reality is that those demand just go to the black market to buy their dollar. They import the things, they sell them straight away. Inflation keeps going up. It keeps going up. We can't balance our books, and it's all because NNPC refiners are just not producing the fuel. Yeah. They're not producing the fuel, and then we're just left to the dogs. And they're not supporting modular refineries that are smaller, that are more efficient. They are still on those, they are big, dead, refineries that have run out of their useful life, pouring billions there, and then workers are there and being paid salary, and there's nothing coming out.
And
nothing coming out of it.
It's not even accommodative of these gaps in the production process.
Well, and the case of the budget is that you have a 1.69 million barrels a day when we are doing just over 1 million, and then you have an inflated price from 70 to 75. On a normal day, I would have been comfortable with that 75. But when you consider that the production volume is never meeting the target, then you multiply the two, and then you see that you may not even get half of that. So you can't get anything on a such crude account. Neither will you get any accretion to the foreign reserve, because you can't actually get the money.
Yeah. Prof, I'm really happy, that you raise certain concerns, with respect to oil production, NMPC not being, our refineries not being functional and what have you. And of course, you mentioned modular refineries, which we've had over the years. Some of them are functional now, but they're focusing on diesel and not the PMS, which is the main driver of the economy in terms of transportation and other, machinery that we use even in manufacturing. All right, let's return to Shuaib once more. Your concerns and your opening remarks, I could say, are quite germane. But again, there may be reasons, behind the decisions taken by members of the National Assembly to allocate, funds sectorally as they did. But now I want us to look at the issue of funding the budget, because with my little knowledge of economics, it is the difficulty in accessing revenue to fund budgets that really makes budgets not to balance, or poor implementation of the budget, and in some cases non-implementation of budget. This IMF has warned Nigeria, and specifically the CBN of Nigeria, against funding government, saying that that could of course increase the inflation that Professor Ken has been talking about. I want you to put all of this, in a mix. Let's have viewers have a better understanding of the implication, awaiting us. Should we not be able to raise enough revenue to fund this budget?
Kirian, thank you very much. Read my mind before the studio interjected in my earlier conversation. I wanted to touch tangentially on that subject matter. Fundamentally, there are 2 or 3 sources of funding any budget. Number one is revenue generation. Our revenue to GDP is one of the lowest, even in continental Africa, talk less of the global community. We need to do it urgently. Nigerians, and indeed every person living in Nigeria, should, and by way of compulsion, must be made to pay appropriate taxes. There are quite a number of pieces of legislation, on taxation, capital gains tax, capital transfer tax. Only the VAT and some of us that are on payroll of companies that we pay, we get salaries that we pay our appropriate taxes. But even the company income tax, the petroleum appropriate tax, a number of companies are compromised. They are not paying appropriate taxation. As long as we don't get our tax regime right, we will continue to have excessive budget deficit and being funded by debt. Our great-grandchildren, they have to come and pay. This is one source of funding a budget. Second source is, like I did say when we initially discussed this piece of legislation, the Finance Act, signed just yesterday, we expressed concern that maybe the National Assembly should take a critical look at some of our overhead expenses, and we drastically reduce them. Call it austerity measures, call it belt tightening. That should have been one of the things we all would have loved to see in the synchronized finance bill that was sent to Mr. President for signature. But may and behold, they probably either didn't hear us or didn't think there is need for an austere moment in Nigeria. Of course, the third major source of funding budget are debts. There is absolutely nothing wrong with incurring debt. Myself as a banker or ex-banker, I will encourage people to take loans. And like we say in Hausa, debt is like intestine. It will be found in every animal. There will be intestine. So I am indebted, you are indebted, he is indebted. There's absolutely nothing wrong in borrowing to fund critical infrastructure. But wait a minute, what are we borrowing for? In Nigeria, greater proportion of some of these debts are either funding expenses that are not critical or necessary for our economic development, and even where and when they are borrowed, we have a challenge where corruption, bribery, in essence, we don't get a situation. In quite a number of instances, we have debts that were taken just to fund overhead. How can you possibly have a country, funding, the payment of salaries using loans? This is serious.
Thank you, Shuaibu. Thank you. Of course, you're joining us via Zoom and from Khartoum, all the way from Sudan. We'll just keep you on hold for the moment and come back to Professor Ken Ife here. He's raised some issues, of course, with the way of, especially with issues with our borrowings, issues with our expenditure, and vis-a-vis capital expenses. And if you look at the budget, recurrent expenditure is over 8 trillion, 8.3 trillion, while capital expenditure is about 5 point something trillion, and just few naira notes higher than what we had this year. And I'm wondering, why do we perennially expend on overhead and personnel? And what is the economic reasoning in our spending less on capital this in 2023?
The personnel cost component of that 8.3 trillion is 4.9, is 5 trillion. Okay. Now, if you look at ECOWAS macroeconomic convergence criteria, which draws us into a single currency, what they said there is that personnel costs should not be more than 25% of government revenue. So, but that 5 trillion is nearly half of projected government revenue. So we are spending more money on personnel without a doubt. But if we can get the revenue, then that's fine. But we are struggling to get the revenue.
Exactly.
And the other thing, of course, as part of this is that by raising this benchmark and all that, you notice that the deficit has come down to 10.78 trillion from over 11. Well, that's on paper. It's only on paper because there are so many hostages to that fortune of getting 1.69 million barrels a day. And when you talk of revenue, you talk about the benchmark $75 multiplied by 1.69. So you're going to have to multiply both before it gives you the revenue. But when one is failing you, which is 1.69, you will never get to a point where you've got enough money to say, okay, this is excess, to head to excess crude. You're going to have to make sure you factor the production volume. So it is going to be very tight. It's going to be very, very difficult time for us.
Yeah, difficult time indeed, because I also look at the issue of having a budgeted 3 trillion naira for subsidy, and then 6 trillion for debt servicing. And we are talking about revenue generation.
But that is come down now. The subsidy, the figure has come because it was over 6 trillion.
Okay.
But that's hoping maybe there's some way of hope.
And it's also a projection.
It may not even get up to June. So we'll have to see how it goes. Or maybe there is hope that Dangote may release the first liter of petrol. But he can't sell us more than 40% of what he produces because in a free trade zone. So we have to be very, very cautious in expecting him to do magic for you.
I know you've always been on the side of those who also enlighten us on the fact that in terms of our borrowings, we are still within acceptable limits. The president also made that clear that we are still within what he described as cautious but also acceptable limit. But again, like Shuaibu Idris, raised concerns about continuous borrowing to fund our project.
There's nothing we can do about it. See, look, let me explain to you. You produce growth and employment through investment. Investment is the beginning. Even if you want to make efficient government, you need to invest money. Even if it's a computer system you are going to use to make inland revenue perform better, you have to invest money. If you want to fight corruption, you need to use systems and something to fight corruption, you've got to invest money. So the beginning is investment. You're going to find investment in productive activity. And that activity will create jobs. Those jobs will pay salaries to workers. Workers will have disposable income. And with their disposable income, they can pay for health, education, and poverty reduction. That is the cycle. There's no the other cycle. The other thing is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Go for rich people, take their money and share it to poor people, and they're not creating wealth. Do you understand? Now, when you want to invest, government will say, where is our savings? If you want to invest, where is your savings? You don't have savings, so you have to borrow. And who goes are borrowing, goes are sorrowing. So whatever else we've got to borrow. But the thing is this: where are you borrowing from? What does the law tell you about what you borrow? The law is very clear. FRA 2000 is very, very clear. Concessionary rates, which is less than 3%. For long-term borrowing, we know long-term to be long-term. Then it says you have to borrow for capital expenditure or for human resource development, and that is education, health, and employment. It didn't say you have to borrow to share to people. No, it didn't say that. So it doesn't say you should borrow to pay salaries. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say you should borrow to pay back the debt. That's not what it says. And so you have so many, and then it says for any borrowing scheme, you have to bring a cost-benefit analysis to show that there's a capability that you could be able to return that, repay that money or whatever. Some analysis. So the law covers all that. So the issue is now, where did the exigency push us to? We had two recessions, and this country had to survive. So we had COVID-19, we had to find money. So that's why we had those 23 trillion that were coming in from this thing.
But many Nigerians will be wondering, where is manufacturing in all of this? Where is production in all of this? When you borrow for human capital development and you are not thinking of industrialization of the country, with many supposedly third world, members of the third world countries have done, like Brazil, right? So Singapore, Malaysia, the rest of them, the Asian tigers. What did they do? Was it magic that they did? Because I know they borrowed. But what did they do with the money they borrowed? Now, revenue generation is no longer the tradition that we know. You explained to us a while ago how the government is aggressively expanding its tentacles, collecting taxes and what have you. And I mentioned something then, and that has to do with the remittances of what has been collected. So if you have to now base our budget and planning as a nation on borrowing without thinking of production, I'm wondering where we're going, because that's one of the reasons why I started by saying, at the inspiration of this program, that we are a nation that has not been able to have a balanced budget in the last 30 years. Yet to have great economies, yet to have government in power, yet we also see that other nations are doing things differently and they are working, and some things are done here and they are not working. So what is going on?
When you capital expenditure, which is a substantial component of government's expenditure, here is got over 5 trillion, 5.9 trillion in the capital budget. That's what covers the area you mentioned, industrialization and all of that stuff. But the different story, how it is carried out, because we have all agreed that we should move towards private sector led economic development. So, was PPPs and all of that. We've agreed on that. So the question will be how, but a lot of that money goes to infrastructure. A lot of it goes to infrastructure, and you can see from the supplementary budget that over 80%, almost 80% of the money in the supplementary budget went to 704 billion went to works and housing. It's infrastructure, and is it necessary? Of course it is, but what type of infrastructure and what is the capacity of that infrastructure to repay? So some are unassailable in terms of qualification, but Nigeria needs to put some money on infrastructure because our stock of infrastructure is 35% of our GDP. That is lowest, is the lowest. South Africa is 85% of their GDP. So we have to, but we have to be sensible in which ones that you invest in, because you are borrowing the money. It has to be the one that are capable of energizing the economy, creating value, and then being capable of repaying itself. Not anything and everything called infrastructure that you need to borrow money to put it. Government has its own money. Government can decide to use its own capital, its own earned money to do anything it likes. But if you have to borrow.
I'm sorry, we have to pause you. Put you on hold and take a commercial break. Okay. It's 8:30. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. Let's take a break now.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as the elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children to protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society, and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts, via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the top of your button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership, Alhaji Mohammed Mitakobi, the Executive National President of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria.
In 774 local governments, will be able to put all our structures in everywhere and be able to bring the retail members together, reconcile them to come and work for the progress of the association.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space, some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more. Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Right, welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria, and of course, welcome back Shuaibu Idris, who is joining us via Zoom from Khartoum in Sudan. Mr. Shuaibu Idris, thank you once again for joining us. So let's look at, if you consider the economic indices, the Nigerians, are currently contending with. Of course, 133 million, Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. You look at the rate of inflation. You look at the cost of, goods and food items. You look at so many things, that we're going through at the moment. Would you say that this budget is fit for all these purposes?
Thank you, Claire, once again. Before I attempt to address that subject matter, let me draw our attention to the fact that there are indeed alternatives to borrowing. Economics as a subject is a science of various alternatives or varying alternatives. Number one, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria can, for example, sell some of its assets. We have had a bureau for public enterprises that has handled a number of privatization and commercialization over the years since President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida's time till now. In the last 7 years or so, we've not had any of our assets either being commercialized or privatized. Number two, we have had an infrastructure concession and regulation commission. How much of such concessioning and or commercialization or outright sale of the asset have we had? These are veritable sources of revenues to reduce budget deficit and to reduce the excessive weight of debt servicing that we are likely going to bequeath to our generations yet unborn. Fast forward to your question. The indices are indeed glaring and they are frightening. The misery index, the poverty level, we're talking of a country or a government where the government had a policy that we want to lift out 100 million Nigerians out of excessive poverty or severe poverty. What do we see? We've seen an exacerbation of even the poverty level instead of getting people out of poverty. And yet, the budget does not appear to align its position with ways and means of getting people out of poverty. If you look at the challenge of insecurity, the challenge of flooding that have afflicted several parts of the country, and other myriad challenges. Some are natural disasters, some are man-made. The budget does not appear to what I will say targeted spending. If you want to apply fertilizer to your plant, you go to the root and apply fertilizer. You don't go in between the ridges and apply fertilizer and hope that God will send down rain and the rain will flood to take the fertilizer to the root of the crop. Like I did say in the first part of the segment of the conversation that we had on this, Professor Ken Ibed even did allude to the fact that I bombed the budget, but it was just fact of the matter. We need to be realistic, we need to be fair, we need to be sincere, we need to be transparent, we need to be accountable. Claire, you did allude to the fact that President Buhari said the issue of debt is not so high because some of the ratios are within limit. But by the time you take the 23 trillion naira that we are about to take into recognition, quote and unquote, to put in our data, you will realize that number one, we are bankrupt, number two, we are insolvent, and number three, we are likely going to be, to have serious challenges in the next 1 to 3 years. Claire and fellow discussants, why are we not having the courage to remove petroleum subsidy and save close to about 1 trillion naira from this subsidy? And some of these subsidies is only for a few of us that have multiple cars that we use to buy fuel at cheaper rate. The common man in the village, how often does he or she even enter a bus from one destination to another? The earlier we take some drastic measures, the better. And finally, very important, we need to have a rethink. We need to be passionate, we need to be sincere, and we need to be proactive by government taking some drastic measures such as a reduction of its workforce because we have a bloated bureaucracy, and then we need to cut down on waste. Why are ministers, why are governors, why are senior government functionaries still going about to several cars at the expense of me and you and the common man when we could save these resources?
Thank you, Shaibu. I'm going to remain with you actually, because I want you to deviate from all you have said this morning to inculcate what I personally and perhaps other Nigerians would also like you to look at. Now, borrowing, there's nothing wrong with borrowing. We have all accepted that. But again, what you do with money borrowed is what matters. Now, if you look at the globally, most nations that have developed borrowed. China borrowed, extensively borrowed. America borrows. As a matter of fact, America is the highest debtor, in the world today. But the point is, where is this money going to? Now, what is your take on the issue of developing the nation's science, technology, and innovation sector to drive industrialization, to drive agriculture, to drive education? Because we are relying on 100% importation of all science, technology, and innovation-driven products, from razor blade to toothpick. So how do we now begin to grow, homegrown technology? Because that is the fundamental. If you borrow and build infrastructure, Second Niger Bridge, for instance, we're talking about. If the money used for that bridge was borrowed and the bridge is tolled, then of course, how long will it take to recover the money? Let alone making gain from the. So we are not concentrating on home production process, industrialization at our own level, as done by the Asian tigers that we are glorifying today.
Kirian, God bless you abundantly for this question. You know what? In 2017, I was in the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies as a course participant number 39, and the subject of discussion and the theme of our course was STI, Science, Technology, and Innovation for the development of agriculture and agro-allied products and processes. A lot of study. We went to not less than 30 different countries of the world, both Africa outside the African continent. And we got knowledge, we got experiences, and we came back, we put, a position document that was sent to government. Now, Kirian and indeed fellow discussant, Professor Ken Ife, look at the paltry sum of allocation to the Science and Technology Ministry. Can we say we are serious? We require massive investment in storage facilities so that we can fence up post-harvest losses. We require massive investment in rural roads so that the agri-produce can quickly and easily get into the hinterland. We require policies and programs that will attract foreign direct investment so that our solid mineral sector, our agricultural sectors or subsectors can get investment, that industries, manufacturing concerns can be established with a view to generating employment, and in so doing reducing the acute poverty that has bedeviled our nation. Indeed, Kirian and fellow Nigerians, we need spending, we need budget that will be targeted spending, meaning I am putting this money with a view to getting 1, 2, 3 consequences or outcome, what we call input-output relationship. Most of the budget positions, both at the national and the subnational level, they are just spendings largely without necessarily carefully looking at what do we need. In one of these discussion, we did discuss about spending at subnational levels, where some state governors are building airports or bridges in the state capital. To what extent are these necessary and imperative to our economic development? We need to have, I keep saying, we need to have a national shared vision where the national government and the sub-regional and sub-national government should key into with a view to making sure that we address our developmental challenges that each and every one of us will key into. No one will disagree with us that part of the reason why we have insecurity is the excessive poverty. When people are jobless, idle mind is a devil's workshop. How do we address unemployment situation? We have close about 35% of our able youth roaming the street. How do we address that? How do we make sure that we attract investors to come in and mine our solid minerals? We have lithium, we have gold, we have uranium, we have tungsten, name them. And yet, we are not able to attract these investors to come in with a view to helping us. With the arable land that we have, we are still shamefully importing sugarcane and wheat. And to worsen the situation, we have an OPEC policy where some level of monopoly and oligopoly are being created in quite a number of sectors. This is the reason why, Professor Ken Efe will agree with me why we need to enhance competition, not necessarily to have price control. The reason why the prices are so high is because the system has, willingly or unwittingly encouraged monopoly and oligopolistic tendencies in our economy. Of course, at the detriment of we Nigerians who are made to buy some of these goods and services at exorbitant prices.
You. Again, we're back to the studio, Professor Kenife. If you look at the what has been allocated to the education sector, for instance, and I take education, because of the strikes and the situations, that bedeviled that sector this year or since last year. If you look at what has been allocated to it, vis-a-vis capital projects, do you think it's enough to there is an increase, but is that increase enough to address the monumental, needs and challenges prevalent in the education sector?
And to add to what she had said, the sector as well. There's a provision for ASU on the budget.
That's why I said
for ASU.
Yeah, that's why I said both the capital and
if you look at African Union recommended that at least 10% should go to agriculture, 10% to education, 10% to health. Those are minimum investment. But I think government has tried to do something, but the resources are so constraining. Look at defense. Defense takes 22% of the budget or more. And look at all the circumstances we are having. We've gone through two stagflation, and then look at the level of income, so poor, 70%. So I think the government should look outside its own resources to energize these sectors, like private sector. America, we only have 200 universities in Nigeria. America has 2,600 universities. Their population is only 300 million and we are 220 million. These numbers, they are not training Americans, they are training the whole world. If you look at India, they have not India, China, they have over 1,300 technical schools. I mean, we have. And then if you think investment in education doesn't make sense, look at the diaspora. They're bringing in $26 billion more than government income. And these are not people who planned and used government money to send abroad to gas. They just found their way. But look at what contribution they're making. It's now returning to 20.5 billion. It went down to about 5 during COVID. It will come up. So that can tell you that if you invest in education, look at where you can go. And then you can become a training ground for many people around the country. So it's a lot. And then the human capital. Now, Japan, tell me what mineral resources Japan has. Japan was number 3 in the world because of their investment in human capacity. They're making electronics. They're making cars. It's investment in human capacity. And how much mineral does even China has, the number 2? It's all still about investment. They invested on medium technical manpower. They kept everybody at the corner of the coastal area. They call them special economic zones, all in the coast, and wait to invest. So they have millions, at something million, the people that they produce every year in that technical grade, and no cheap labor. America is now using them to produce everything for them. So I mean, we have to get off our bike and invest in education, but we don't leave it alone to government. We have to get private sector and enable private sector, because private sector now have more invested than federal government. And it's not just university. How about other tertiary education? How about them? But coming back to the issue that Idris was raising, how to deal with your industrialization. If you look at the industrial structure we inherited, is deformity, because 80% of the manufacturing capacity we have in the country depend on imported raw materials, and that's one of the reasons. Secondly, what the export arrangement with our colonial masters and what have you is for us to produce commodity for them and send it over to them to refine and produce, and then we now consume it.
Professor Ken,
now what you should do to disrupt this is to enforce the fundamental human right on economic rights. Now, economic rights, remember there are 3. There's political rights under human rights, political, which is freedom of association. There's social rights, which deals with housing, food, but there's economic rights, which is also reinforced by the Special Sustainable Development Goal. Go for the right of every citizen everywhere in Nigeria to add value to what God has given to them. If you are producing crops, you have the right to add value to the crop. If you are producing solid minerals and gas and natural, you have the right to produce to add value to that. That is where you begin to change the equation. Yeah, government has to enforce that right and invest in it so that people know that you have the right to create job for yourself. using adding value to what God has endowed you with.
Yes,
in all parts of the country.
Professor Khan, one aspect of this that I want to take you up on, is the fact that what we inherited, from the colonial masters. We had the factories. We also have foreign investors who are here: Volkswagen, Toyota, Mercedes, Dunlop tire makers, and all of that. They all left the country because of our economic condition.
They left the country because the pressure for us to import anything and everything superseded the pressure to maintain what we have.
Because of course,
we have cheap clothes coming from China. They finished all the
it is government policy that is allowing the importation. The raw materials you talked about. Permit me to let you know that I did a documentary on raw materials in Nigeria. We have a council on raw materials. Sir, with due respect, we have more than 80% of raw materials required to produce anything in this country. But once you require outside, maybe chemicals and all of that, those ones they can import. But as a matter of fact, there's no country that produces everything from start to finish.
Correct.
Even America, they have to import something from somewhere to make up what they have. But we ignore what we have. We're talking about textile industry in Kaduna and where are they? Are you saying that there are no machinery that can revive them? It's just a matter of policy. It's not a matter of somebody saying, look, we are going to get this done, and we get it achieved. That's how other nations did theirs. China, India, and what have you. And when we begin to believe in ourselves and do things by ourselves, from all indications and all analysis have gone through, you cannot be a great nation without being a producing nation.
Yeah, policy is very important, because if you notice, when the central bank delisted some items, 34 items from forex eligibility, they poured money on quantitative intervention. All right. But now I was expecting the finance side to augment using levy instrument to say, okay, this area that you say you don't want to give forex, let's increase your levy so we can get more money. And they are doing it in the new act. This new act now, you have 0.5% levy coming in, targeting some groups. Now we are on the same book now.
I'm sorry, Professor Kenny, development economist and of course a public affairs analyst. We'd like to thank you as always. We've just scratched this conversation, and definitely we'll return to it as soon as Mr. President gives his assent to it. Professor Kenny, thank you. Let's also appreciate Shuaibu Idris, who joined us from Khartoum in Sudan via Zoom. Mr. Idris, thank you very much, and we hope to see you right here in the studio when next we have this conversation.
Thank you, Claire, and good morning once again.
All right, of course, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. There'll be another edition same time tomorrow. That's Friday. Here is John and Kieran will be here. I am Claire Delabo Abdul Razak. Thank you. And Kieran?
Yeah, well, I'm Kieran. I'll be with you tomorrow.
No leave, no transfer.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact,